morning, Sam. Yes, we're in this period after the EU announcements on forthcoming tariffs for Chinese electric car imports, where the EU says they're in discussion with their Chinese counterparts. And I had the opportunity to sit down with a Economic Research Institute director, Jin Ruiting. He's part of the NDRC, and he's saying, of course, that these Chinese electric cars that are going into Europe are actually priced more expensively than they are being sold in China. Also, he emphasized how China has taken steps to open up the market to auto manufacturers, electric car companies, including Tesla, into China, and also lowering the tariffs for imports over the years. He's also saying that if there are concerns about the impact to local jobs in other countries from China's industrial policy, well, they should be also looking at how they manage their policy domestically and not just put the blame on other countries like China. But in response to directly what's going on with the EU probe, he had some more specific comments. Let's have a listen.
Regarding the latest EU actions, we should more accurately call it the conclusion of an anti-subsidy probe into new energy vehicles. Of course, there are still uncertainties around the next step, but I will share my added perspective. I think it's not aligned with the rules of a market economy or that of the World Trade Organization. I think the most important part of an anti-subsidy probe is the industry's application for one, because some people or business entities, they may feel they've received unfair market treatment, and industries or entities should be put forward, but we haven't seen this. As far as I know, at some hearings in Europe, we have put forward our requests, and we have clearly expressed our concerns with Europe, but my understanding is that there hasn't been positive feedback. Why do we raise the point on WTO rules? Because on this issue, I think there is a very important principle. When you target a subsidy policy, the sample you choose is very important. If you only choose a Chinese sample, as long as you choose the enterprise with the largest export volume, you do an analysis on whether there is possible subsidy. But now, the probe hasn't chosen the businesses with the largest export volume, only Chinese ones. I personally feel that as an economic researcher, this is not in line with the rules of the WTO. There's a problem with your sample selection, and I think there's a big problem with the conclusion. So I think the investigation process is not transparent, and the results are not credible.
So the WTO, when I asked them about this, they said they have no comment. The EU Commission has said that their actions are in compliance with WTO rules, and you can read more of their response on CNBC.com. So we'll have to see, whether or not the Chinese and the European Commission come to some kind of agreement here, or if the tariffs start to kick in on July 4th. It's interesting in terms of the Chinese response, as Sam mentioned, there's this investigation into the potential anti-dumping of EU pork into China. But the Chinese side, interestingly, is first citing that they are coming from these industry complaints, and also that this is an action that's taking effect immediately. So we're still watching whether China can take other sorts of countermeasures to these latest escalation from the European side. But as Jin told me, he's still focused a lot on cooperation. He says that these developments might be beneficial to politicians in the short term, but the risks are certainly much greater and broader in impact. So we'll have to see whether or not all of this escalation plays out, or this just becomes something in terms of a war of words. Back to you, Tanvir.